Hey, if you like some of the stories we cover on the Majority Report, then check out the Sierra Club's new storytelling podcast, The Land I Trust. Season 2 of The Land I Trust brings you 14 storytellers from across the western U.S. who share their experiences in harvesting, protecting, and living with the 4 natural elements, the tales of climate change, clean energy, and everything in between. Listen to The Land I Trust at beyondcoal.org/stories or on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
It is Friday, September 14th, 2018. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ben Dixon from the Ben Dixon Show. Also on the program, ostensibly to give us a movie recommendation, but ultimately to defend the spurious claims made in a British review of his comedy. Andy Kindler will be here. Meanwhile, Brett Kavanaugh allegedly sexually assaulted a woman in high school. And in New York State, the so-called independent Democratic caucus is shattered. Sadly, Andrew Cuomo wins in what amounts to a massive New York State turnout. Meanwhile, nationally, Dems eye the Senate, but it's a straight uphill battle. And in the House, Republicans roiled by retirements. Botham Jean, now first a victim of a cop killing, now a victim of a smearing in real time. And speaking of cops, Paul Manafort cops a deal. He will be cooperating with Robert Mueller. Crazy tweets to follow. And speaking of crazy tweets, apparently Donald Trump sought to exclude blind people from Trump Tower.
It's bad luck. Ask a leprechaun, Dad said.
All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, another week has gone by, and the insanity continues. Last night, many of us stayed up late. It didn't actually. It wasn't too late. The results that came in from New York State, and look, it is the case that stories in places like New York and California get an inordinate amount of media coverage because a lot of media people live in New York and California. However, it is also the case that these states, because of their size and because of not just the media, but all the other industries that work through their state, have an outsized influence on national policy. So when California says we're going to have higher CAFE standards or emission standards for cars, the entire car industry changes what they're going to do because they have to meet California standards because that's where they sell the most cars in the country. When New York State, for instance, says we're not going to abide by this merger because there are state-based antitrust laws. And so this major cable company cannot merge in this state. It can destroy a merger for a company that is a national company. Not to mention, there's a lot of financial things that run through New York State, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's a whole host of other reasons. We're talking about two very blue states in New York and California and other ones as well. But if a single payer healthcare system could happen in a state, and I'm not saying that's not preferable to a national one. It's much harder. But there are other proposals that could take place in a state like California or New York. And if it works there, there's absolutely no argument that it couldn't work other places. And so the outcomes of these elections are very important. Andrew Cuomo won. That was to be anticipated. The final tally definitely took a piece out of him. I think people had maybe higher expectations in some respects for Nixon. But the idea was to send a message to Cuomo. You're not going to become a Democratic nominee for president if you govern like you're living in 1993 and you're a third-way Democrat. That's just not going to happen. Cynthia Nixon got 500, and these are not totally final numbers, but pretty close. This will give you a sense of the turnout as opposed to 2014. Off-year election, right? Not a presidential election, just for a primary, governor primary. Cynthia Nixon got 512,000 votes. Sadly, Cuomo got 977,000 votes. I don't want to toot my own horn. I don't know if I said this on air yesterday, but what did I say it was going to be? 65-35? It was 65.6 to 34.4. So
Toot, toot.
Toot, toot. But that's not the interesting thing about this at all. What's interesting is Cynthia Nixon got over almost 150,000 more votes in losing to Andrew Cuomo than Andrew Cuomo got when he won in 2014. In 2014, Andrew Cuomo beat Zephyr Teachout in a similar spread. She got 34.3% of the vote. Cuomo got 65.7% of the vote. Maybe a little less, actually. But he got 330,000 votes. She had 182,000. Cynthia Nixon got 512,000 votes. She almost got more than everybody who voted last time. That's how many people came out to vote in this election. And sadly, Jumaane Williams lost. And Tish James, my second choice, Zephyr Teachout, lost. And we'll talk a little bit about that. There's some people who theorize that this sort of new Democrat-style congressman jumped into the race as a way of taking votes away from Zephyr Teachout upstate, and which is exactly what happened. But the big news is, though, is that members of a caucus that would caucus with the Republicans, the IDC, 6 out of 8 of them lost. And some to DSA folks like Salazar, some to just progressive Democrats. But the IDC was not even operative anymore. Largely, I think, because of Cynthia Nixon. And yet they still lost relative to 2014 when they were operative and they all won. So there's definitely, obviously, something brewing here, and we'll talk more about that with Ben Dixon. But here is, and let me just say why I think I'm not the only person who thinks that Cynthia Nixon was, in a large part, responsible. Obviously, when AOC won, that created a lot of energy around these races. But Cynthia Nixon was educating people. I went to a house party type of function where she's speaking to people in someone's apartment, and I think it was the first one that she ever did. Or at least as far as I know. And the top 3 or 4 issues she talked about were decriminalizing marijuana, was getting rid of the IDC, and maybe a couple other smaller issues. And shortly after she did that, Cuomo changed his stance on both of those things. By the time I saw her 2 months ago or a month ago, there wasn't as many issues for her to land on because he had already addressed those. So Governor Nixon was very successful in that regard. I am not the only person who believes that. I think this is about a week ago, maybe a couple of days ago. This was a week ago. No, Tuesday of this week, I think it was. Alessandra Biaggia, she is a lawyer who worked for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and in Cuomo's counsel's office, ran against Jeff Klein. He was the leader of the IDC. And she said the following: the moment that Cynthia got into the race, it helped my campaign because she started talking about the IDC almost incessantly. She said every day, the IDC, the IDC, the IDC. And for people who didn't know what it was, it gave them the education about what had been going on. I will tell you, there is no doubt the number of people who are aware of the IDC just went through the roof because of Cynthia Nixon bringing it to the fore. I mean, it got some attention in October. There was a campaign that was waged. They used Edie Falco, but really Cynthia Nixon was the one who crystallized this. And I would see it at these house parties. People were just like, what? The ID, what? How is that legal? How is that possible? So it's a big win, even in loss. And this goes to what I think, we were saying when they referred to it as the blogosphere. There is value in waging fights and losing. Here is Cynthia Nixon with her concession speech last night in New York.
The blue wave is real, and it is not only coming for Republicans, it is coming for Democrats who act like them. And as I said on the first day of this campaign, if we want things to finally change in New York State, we don't just need to elect more Democrats, we need to elect better Democrats. In our campaign, we took on one of the most powerful governors in America, and it wasn't easy. We had to fight just to get on the ballot. We had to fight just to get a debate. And we started with nothing, and we earned every single vote. And the establishment came at us with everything they had. Our allies and endorsers were threatened. My family was slandered. The other side spent $25 million trying to drown us out. But we wouldn't back down. We refused to be quiet, and we made our voices heard. And while the result tonight was not what we hoped for, I am not discouraged, I am inspired, and I hope you are too.
There you go. Cynthia Nixon compilation of parts of her speech last night. And I think, everything she said was borne out in the numbers last night. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ben Dixon.
Pretty baby, dry your eyes, don't you know it can't be that bad? How it hurts me, pretty baby, when I see you sitting there so sad. Don't need to worry about tomorrow, and yesterday is gone. So raise the chin up, girl, and we will work our problems out one by one. Hold me tight, don't let go. Turn me loose, never no. We'll stand our problems all in a row. Watch them fall like dominoes. Falling like dominoes.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program the host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, Benjamin Dixon. Ben, welcome to the program.
Sam, thanks so much for having me again.
Ben, where can people see your show?
Well, you know what? Right now I'm doing podcast only, but they can watch the podcast on YouTube on my regular channel, The Benjamin Dixon Show, or get it anywhere you can get a podcast.
Great. And people should check that out. All right, we got a lot to talk about, and much of it has broken in the past hour, I would say.
Yeah.
Let's start with Manafort, because there's not a lot of information as of yet. Literally 10 minutes ago, I think it became clear that Manafort is in this plea deal, is going to be cooperating with Mueller. And there are two big things that come out of this. One, obviously, is the cooperation with Mueller. And Mueller has reason to believe that he has something to give in terms of the investigation of Donald Trump, I would imagine, right? Because we're at that point now where, if the whole thing about these prosecutors is to get the small fish to get the big fish, there's not many other big fish out there.
Exactly. And this is a critical stage, right? Donald Trump is trying to signal that it's all coming to an end. But in reality, this is far from over. And with Paul Manafort's agreement to cooperate, I mean, if it's something about Donald Trump, then that's possibly the ball game there. It's possible, though. There's a slight possibility that he might be cooperating on another suspect, so to speak. In that case, this actually could help Trump by not allowing this case to draw out to the midterms. So it all really hinges on what Manafort is actually getting ready to give up.
What's also interesting in this plea deal is that Manafort is basically giving up $46 million worth of property. As a forfeiting basically $46 million worth of well, in this case, it's real estate. I am right now, seeing if I can qualify for a mortgage and get some of this stuff, but probably a little bit out of my price range. But the amazing thing about it is that $46 million, guess what that pays for? That pays for this entire investigation. So, the idea, one of the talking points, right, that the Republicans would inevitably use is this Mueller thing is just costing all this money, and now it just paid for itself.
I mean, that's it. And that was always we knew that was disingenuous from Republicans when you go all the way back to Ken Starr and the amount of money, or Benghazi for that matter,
right?
The amount of money they're willing to pour into useless investigations that amount to nothing. But this is the game that they play, and I think that they are very efficient and proficient at this game of holding us to two different standards in every aspect, and particularly here when it comes to the cost of special investigations.
What's interesting, too, in this, and I haven't had a chance to read the entire thing, but he's going to plead guilty to the conspiracy to defraud the United States.
Yeah.
And people remember we had Marcy Wheeler on. That is what she suspected was the charges that the Mueller investigation was looking forward to charging not just Manafort with, but maybe Don Jr. and maybe Don Sr. In addition to some other violations on representing foreign entities and witness tampering. But this is this is big stuff, right? I mean, the Manafort, I'm surprised. I thought that guy was willing to die in prison, to be honest with you.
Well, one article, like you said, this all just came out in the last 20 minutes, maybe. One article mentioned that he's actually trying to avoid, it's very possible he's trying to avoid even more legal costs, legal fees, as one explanation, because most people really thought that he would hold the line for Donald Trump. He's already going to spend some time in jail. So, in a way, to me, that would solidify that I'm already going to jail. Why would I give up Donald Trump? So I guess this is just a testament to how tenuous the loyalty people give to Donald Trump really is.
Well, he may be able to get off of what he was just sentenced. That other case, that could be part of this deal as well. We'll find out. I mean, he may end up avoiding prison time. The question is, did he? I was always speculating that he was afraid of some oligarch taking him out, but maybe he also gets like a wig and a nose job and ends up somewhere in Iowa or something like that.
Yeah, I missed that part. So if that's a part of the plea deal, then I mean it's a no-brainer.
All right. Well, since we don't have much information on that, let's move on to something that I think is, going to have a lot more relevance in the next coming days, literally.
Yeah.
So folks had heard about this letter. This story started circulating a little bit over the past 2 or 3 days, that there was a letter Diane Feinstein had that she was not sharing with her colleagues. Clearly, her colleagues, somebody leaked this within Feinstein's office, or maybe there was a congresswoman who apparently also got this information. A constituent of theirs in California has apparently alleged that Brett Kavanaugh, and this is now coming from a story by Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer that came out at 10:30 in the morning. And let me just read some of this, because I don't know if you've had a chance to digest all this stuff yet either. But here it is. There was Kavanaugh was a high school student at Georgetown Preparatory School in Bethesda, Maryland. That is completely not shocking. And apparently there was a girl who attended a nearby high school. In the letter, the woman alleged that during an encounter at a party, Kavanaugh held her down, that he attempted to force himself on her. She claimed in the letter that Kavanaugh and a classmate of his, both of whom who had been drinking, turned up music that was playing in the room to conceal the sound of her protests, and that Kavanaugh covered her mouth with his hand. She was able to free herself, although the alleged incident took place decades ago. It's about maybe 30 years ago. The 3 individuals involved were minors. The woman said that the memory had been a source of ongoing distress for her and that she had sought psychological treatment as a result. In a statement, Kavanaugh said, "I categorically and unequivocally deny this allegation. I did not do this back in high school or at any time." And here's the weird part to me. Kavanaugh's classmate said of the woman's allegation, "I have no recollection of that." Now, Ben, I come to you and I say, Ben, you attempted to sexually assault me in high school. It seems to me your answer is, no, I didn't.
Right. Exactly.
I have no recollection of that.
Right. Exactly. This story should be enough to slow down the nomination process, the confirmation process, but I have a feeling it may not. We'll see how big it actually gets. The potential is really there. But Diane Feinstein's role in this is so troubling in the sense that she was sitting on this. You mentioned the congresswoman who had it first, Anna Eshoo, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. Her constituent came to her and said that this happened to me. And then it subsequently got to Diane Feinstein's office, and she sat on it. And she sat on it because she said it was so long ago. Okay, so this is problematic for 2 reasons. Number one, that should never be an excuse, right? We have shifted into a new era where it's accountability. At a minimum, this victim's voice should have been heard and allow it to be litigated, even if it's just in the court of public opinion. So Feinstein, she's saying that she didn't want to put the woman through all this, but the woman would not have put herself through this by coming forward. She wanted this to come out because she felt like it needed to come out. And I feel like Diane Feinstein kind of robbed her of that opportunity. Had someone not leaked it from her office, whoever that person is, I mean, thank goodness for them. So this is problematic. But then number two, it shows that Feinstein isn't up to fighting the Republicans on the level that they would fight us. I mean, we can't have leaders in office right now who refuse to play hardball. We're dealing with the whole ball game for at least a generation. I mean, you and I are going to have nothing but white hair by the time we undo some of the damage Kavanaugh can do. And she's sitting down on information like this, even if you feel morally that this is just something that can't, this is too old, et cetera, et cetera. We are in this thing for the whole ball game. You can't sit on information like this. So politically and morally, I think Diane Feinstein is very problematic in this story.
Okay, so let's just so that we're being, super accurate. Apparently, the woman, after interactions with the offices of Eschew and Feinstein, decided not to speak about the matter publicly. Okay, which means that either they said, look, this could get really ugly for you. You might as well not do it, or he's going to sail through, or whatever. Now, look, I also think there's a responsibility, if you are these members, to protect this woman on some level. But let me just read what we know from this reporting. Feinstein declined requests from other Democrats on the Judiciary Committee to share the woman's letter and other relevant communications. Which is interesting, too. I don't know what those other relevant communications are. A source familiar with the committee's activities said that Feinstein's staff initially conveyed to other Democratic members that the incident was too distant in the past to merit public discussion, and that Feinstein had, quote, taken care of it. That's stunning.
That's
it is.
That's unbelievable.
Stunning. And then Feinstein, only after reporting, and I think largely came from Ryan Grimm at The Intercept, the Feinstein agreed to brief the other Democrats on the committee with no staff present. Right. On Thursday, Feinstein announced that she had referred the matter to the FBI. I've received information from an individual concerning the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. That individual strongly requested confidentiality, declined to come forward or press the matter further. I have honored that decision. I have, however, referred the matter to federal investigative authorities. Now, here's where her story starts falling apart, where Feinstein's story of I'm just protecting this woman starts falling apart. Because if protecting that woman still can involve telling the FBI on Thursday, then she should have done it weeks ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sources familiar with Feinstein's decision suggest that she was acting out of concern for the privacy of the accuser, knowing that the woman would be subject to fierce partisan attacks if she came forward. Okay, fair enough. Take that at face value. Give her the benefit of the doubt. However, then it writes, Feinstein also acted out of a sense that Democrats would be better off focusing on legal rather than personal issues in their questioning of Kavanaugh. That is effing insane.
That's gross incompetence from a political perspective. She's I mean, I don't want to be ageist, but she's like one of the older members of the Senate. I think she's like in her late 80s or mid 80s. And I only mention that not to be ageist, but she's hearkening back to a more civilized time. A more civilized time, if there ever was such a thing. I think there was. But if there was ever such a more civilized time, then this is what you would do. This is how you would behave. But we're not dealing with civilized times right now. We're not dealing with reasonable people. And for her to make this move just politically, let's set aside her concerns for her constituent. Okay, maybe we can give her that. But just politically, at face value, this is so incompetent that it really is something that she needs to be held accountable for.
And you could argue with civilized times. It was also times where it's like, boys will be boys, that type of thing. And she's got a real problem here. Feinstein's got a real problem here. Kavanaugh's got a problem and Feinstein both have a problem. And if I was Kevin De Leon, I would be, the only thing I would be talking about this right now is this. What is the point of having Diane Feinstein, a senator from California, who is going to sit on this. Listen to what a staffer from a member of the Judiciary Committee. It's not clear. Maybe it's a staffer. It's not clear to me if it's a staffer or a colleague. They didn't understand why Feinstein had resisted answering legitimate questions about the allegation. Quote, we couldn't understand what their rationale is for not briefing members on this. This is all very weird, one of the congressional sources said. Another added, she's had the letter since late July, and we all just found out about it. Now, this is, and apparently part of what this woman who was making these allegations was waiting for, to see if there were other women who were going to make allegations. But we know how this works, right?
Right.
The allegations don't crop up until someone stands out. Until one person stands up, and we had that person who was willing to come forward.
Right.
Now, at 8 a.m. this morning, this story breaks at 10:30 a.m. At 8 a.m. this morning, Chuck Grassley releases a letter from 65 women who knew Kavanaugh in high school. And these women say Kavanaugh, quote, behaved honorably and treated women with respect. Now, what that leads me to believe is the Republicans knew about this rape allegation, sometime before now.
Yeah.
And the question is, did Kavanaugh, when he was vetted by the FBI, tell them that there was a rape allegation? Did someone from Diane Feinstein's office make it clear? Or had this woman, over the course of the past 20 years, 30 years, made this allegation public? Or did Brett Kavanaugh say, well, there could have been an incident? I mean, there's a story here as to how the Republicans knew about this.
Right. Yeah. And this is, I mean, I don't know if they even care at this point with how ridiculously quick they put this out. They don't have any regard for the fact that this could be expose them even more, Republicans and Brett Kavanaugh even more. Like you said, there is another story there, but they didn't think about that. They just put it out because they wanted to head off as much as they can. But 65 women who have been spread across the country since high school. They're not all in the same city anymore. This takes time. This takes a few weeks to gather that many signatures from that many different women, tracing them wherever they went in their lives. And so the Republicans, exactly. I mean, So this really demonstrates that there is some meat on the bones here, as my pastor likes to say. I don't know where that came from, but there's some meat on the bones here, and there's something to this story. If nothing else, it could be connected to, maybe, like you said, it came from Feinstein's office, which is a significant story. There's so many possibilities here. I just hope that whoever is investigating this journalistically continues and doesn't stop with just this headline, because there's so much more here.
Well, and I mean, let's keep in mind people, this didn't happen with Neil Gorsuch. We didn't get Neil Gorsuch was great in a carpool. We didn't get Neil Gorsuch as a great coach of, girls basketball. We didn't get this stuff.
That does protest too much.
And we got this stuff on day one with Kavanaugh. So they probably knew this was out there.
Yeah.
And
even with the young girls that they brought from the team to sit behind them, they were compensating a little too much in retrospect. And
this is, I'll tell you something. I mean, this is it is moral and political incompetence by Diane Feinstein.
Absolutely.
There's so many aspects to this that are just completely and good for the other members of the committee who basically forced their hand and basically said to, because this prompted, I think, the extra week. The vote was scheduled for yesterday in the committee. Now it's going to happen, and Democrats have the ability to delay it a week, and they did. And the vote is scheduled for the 20th, and McConnell's going to hold this vote. That means there are 4 or 5 days for this story to become a big one. And the idea that Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer on it is pretty huge, right? I mean,
when I saw his name on it, I was like, That a boy, go get him, man, because, he's really dogged with these types of stories. And someone has to be, because of our history just in this country with being so cavalier and careless with sexual assault stories. And I'm just happy to see that he is following this story, not just for political reasons. And I'm not going to be disingenuous. I'm absolutely ecstatic for that reason. The Supreme Court is too important, but also for moral reasons. I mean, how many people have been able to skate throughout their entire lives, having damaged people in their youth and never been held accountable?
What's also interesting about this is Feinstein has pulled a Joe Biden. People forget there were other women who would substantiate what the allegations against Clarence Thomas, not specifically the ones that were brought to light, but there were other women that Joe Biden basically sat on. And now he did that in the majority. Feinstein's the leader in the minority. But this is a different era, and the expectations, and it's, this is, I'm shocked by this, to be honest with you. I'm shocked by it. I mean, this is, I'm not shocked about Kavanaugh.
The picture that shows where he refused to shake the hand of Fred Guttenberg, it really exposes a lot about his character. So this isn't shocking, but
I would agree with that.
Shocking. Yes. It is shocking that Diane Feinstein would be this negligent politically and morally.
And I hope she pays a price for this in California. I really do. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna cop to wanting anybody but Feinstein to win that election, at least the Democrat. But so De Leon, maybe not my first choice, but the best choice at this point, the only choice. And if he can't make hay of this, then he also is a political incompetent. I don't understand how you get a state that big and you can't get people who can do, just sort of basic politics.
Right. It's astonishing.
All right. Speaking of basic politics, and I want to talk a little bit about the IDC, and I want to get to Botham Jean too, because that story is amazing. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I couldn't help but notice, and it was a total coincidence. I mean, we have talked in the past about, getting into a regular rotation, and I've been remiss in sending some type of calendar, but you were up for this Friday, but just coincidentally, I watched you get in on Twitter into a little tiff with some of who we refer to as the dumb left around here, and really it's. At one point, it moves from just sort of like dumb to sort of a willful ignorance that I think is really. The more this continues, I start to think this is really, this is about a certain careerism, and maybe careerism isn't the word. Where is just generating money, and and of course, one of the people we're talking about is Jimmy Dore, who started this sort of path he's on. That has included, pursuing the Seth Rich conspiracy, the idea that Hillary Clinton had Parkinson's. I mean, I know that he was dabbling in that Pizzagate stuff when he was on that conspiracy podcast, but I just assumed that was more about sort of him being somewhat comedic, maybe, but. The double downing on this stuff, the complete disempowerment. I mean, look, one of the things that we saw about one of the elements that we saw in New York State, for example, is that there is still a massive and I don't agree with, but a massive, in some ways, semi-blind and myopic Democratic partisanship. And you got eliminated half a dozen Democrats who have stood in the way of real progressive, you want to call it, some policies would be very much considered, socialistic policies in New York State. And they were eliminated not by a member of the Green Party, but by people coming in who call themselves Democrats, who clearly have policies to the left of where the Democratic mainstream has been over the past couple of decades, and are eliminating those people and taking them out, and are going to have implications for this state down the road. Even with Andrew Cuomo as governor, the fact of the matter is that the whole farm team that's being created, the next Andrew Cuomo, the next lieutenant governor, is coming from these people. And they're building networks. And this is the way that you get change. It's the way you do politics. It's not as self-satisfying. It's not. It doesn't happen overnight. But this is the way you do it. And to ignore that dynamic because it gets you clicks, I find is just is ridiculous.
You've covered it all. I really don't even have to say much because look at the IDC last night. 6 are gone, and they're gone from Democrats who ran to the left of them, far to the left of them. I mean, that's an understatement. And what's being sold to by the dumb left to the dumb left is political apathy, and it's wrapped up in this veneer of being politically intellectual, which it's funny to say intellectual and Jimmy Dore in the same sentence, but this is how people take it. They take Jimmy Dore seriously, and if you take him seriously, the logical conclusion to what he's asking you to do is apathy, nothingness, and we don't have time for do nothingness because that's literally what is. I mean, there's too many things at stake right now. There are too many issues at stake. Every theory that Jimmy gave about what's going to happen if Donald Trump got elected has fallen. It has not come to. And now we're stuck with a President Trump and a Jimmy Dore. I mean, you already called his name, so I hope you don't mind if I call his name several more times. We're stuck with a Jimmy Dore who relentlessly protects Donald Trump from criticisms from the left. And I'm like, what's really going on here? And I realized it took me too long to realize because a lot of times I just don't feel like getting into confrontations until I do. And then when I do, it looks like what it looked like earlier this week. But I realized this is all for show. There is a group of people, particularly who gather around YouTube, who are looking for the left version of Alex Jones. They're looking for someone who could just keep them angry, regardless of information, regardless of the truth, regardless of the fact. If you can spin everything to be the fault of Hillary Clinton 2 years into Trump's administration, then there is an audience for you to make a lot of money off of. And Jimmy Dore is he's profiting off of it. And
I will say this. I can keep people angry. I don't need to, I can keep people angry. And certainly I was critiquing Barack Obama on national television before Jimmy Dore had a YouTube channel. And for years we would be talking about what was going on with these folks. But it's completely disempowering. And I think you're absolutely right in your point that it basically is it is apathy in terms of their efficacy and their impact. And I would say it goes even further than that, right? Because, look, if you tell people that there is no import to the courts, that it doesn't matter that Donald Trump will, and, if the Democrats get the Senate, then it's still just a disaster, right? If they don't, we're still going to have 2 more years of Donald Trump putting people on the federal judiciary at a record pace. He is 1 out of every 7 judge sitting in the circuit courts. This is the second, and these folks handle a lot more cases in the Supreme Court. In addition to the Supreme Court, there are no opportunities to create any type of change from legislation if you have a court system that's saying that you can't do this because this is unconstitutional. Right. You can't force the states to provide Medicaid to people. You can't have basically outlaw private health insurance. I mean, these are all things that we can expect from a court that has Brett Kavanaugh on it. And if it's not Brett Kavanaugh, it's going to be somebody else who could very well be just as bad, if not worse, in terms of these issues. Right.
And this is what it sums up to. It sums up to making a case against the Democrats, and it tacitly gives support for Donald Trump and everything that he's doing, because just by taking out all of the people who follow the same logic as Jimmy Dore, if you take them out of the equation, I mean, that's still a net win, right? You never had to convert this group to Republicans. All you had to do was discourage them from participating. Yes. And all you had to do was mobilize them in opposition to anything Democrats attempt to do that they claim they want. Like this week last week, it was all about, Barack Obama doesn't really want Medicare for all. And I'm like, I don't care what Barack Obama actually wants deep down inside. All I care is that he gave an endorsement for Medicare for all last Friday. And that's something that we could take to the bank and we can use politically against any Democrat who's still standing on the fence because they want to protect Barack Obama's Obamacare legacy. Well, no, now we have a weapon to use. And what we're seeing instead is a bunch of people from the dumb left who are saying, well, Barack Obama doesn't really want it. Democrats aren't going to really do it. Then you have the Green Party getting in with Jill Stein saying, remember what Democrats did in California. I'm like, all of you are contributing to us not moving forward with Medicare for all when you could have just taken his endorsement. Forget about I didn't even listen to anything else he said in the speech. I don't even care what he said except for Medicare for all. And that's what we should do. And instead, we have the Jimmy Dores of the world and all of his constituency just trying to slow down the process because it gives the appearance of, I don't know, I can't even say intellectualism. I don't know what it is. It's masturbatory. And because, look, there is a tremendous value, in my estimation, to looking back on the things that the Obama administration did wrong, and whether you want to say they did it wrong or they did it because of a skewed perspective on the world, and they did in terms of like the banking. That to me is an important and necessary exercise so that we have the energy and the understanding as to why we need to curb financial institutions. And you could say that about any other issues, but you're absolutely right. If that guy says the words Medicare for all you do is you cup that out and you put that on a billboard, and that's it. And you throw away the rest of the stuff because you don't talk about, there's no value in saying what's in his heart. Look at the smirk on his face. He clearly didn't mean it. Like this is childish stuff. And you know what I call it useless contrarianism. That's what it is. It's useless contrarianism, and they're doing it it's performative and it's for clicks and it's for them to get bona fides and their little circle. The problem is that people like me, I'm generally quiet about stuff until it's too late and it's grown, it's festered into a cancer like the H.A. Goodman cancer that was on the progressive movement. And so we have people like me. We have to speak out. I know you guys have been speaking out about it for a while. I watched some really good clips from Michael Brooks about it. But, we can't sit back and just give them space to grow this ignorance because it has a direct effect, particularly on the power of social media to move policy and to move activism. They are throttling it, and they're doing it for useless contrarianism. Yeah. And, the idea that someone would celebrate Tucker Carlson because he's supposedly anti-war is just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. Every single thing he does is in promotion of those who would promote more war. But because he has a comment or two where he says, like, maybe we shouldn't be spending this money. Like it's bizarre to me. It is really bizarre. But all right, let's move past that because this is it gets me too angry. But let's talk about what's going on with Botham Jean. This is a guy who was in his apartment. He just hanging out, and a cop. She claims she was disoriented, somehow got into his apartment, and apparently, according to her, then
saw this interloper in her apartment.
Yeah.
Made the proper police, calls to, I don't know what, and then shot this guy dead. And now, apparently, the Dallas Police Department is coming out with the idea that the guy had some pot in his apartment. Here is I just want to play this clip of Botham Jean's lawyers, I guess lawyers of the family, responding to the idea that there was a warrant looking for drugs in this guy's apartment who was a victim of a cop shooting an off-duty cop. Here it is.
During our 4 o'clock newscast, there was a new development in this case about marijuana found in Mr. Jean's apartment. Joining me right now are the legal team for the Jean family who want to make a statement about that. Lee Merritt?
No, so we had a chance to look at the initial warrant that was signed by Judge Birmingham, and it was specifically looking for narcotics in Mr. Jean's house. For me and for the legal team for the family, it highlights just sort of the nefarious nature of their investigation. They went in with the intent to look for some sort of criminal justification for the victim. And it's a pattern that we've seen before. It's a pattern of we have a victim, we have a cop who clearly did something wrong, and instead of investigating the homicide, instead of going into her apartment and seeing what they can find, instead of collecting evidence relevant for the homicide investigation, they went out specifically looking for ways to tarnish the image of this young man. And it's even more tragic that the day that information is being released is the day that we've designed to remember who Botham was and what he meant to this community.
I mean, this is insane. I've never heard of going into a victim's apartment in a supposed accidental shooting, right? And looking and specifically getting a warrant to look for drugs. That's insane.
But it is. Okay, let me start there. It's absolutely insane. And I believe that was Lee Merritt, the attorney for the family. And the reason I bring up his name is because he's been on a lot of other cases that have this type of MO. And the MO is kill a black person, vilify them after you kill them. Right. Whether it doesn't matter the scenario. I had a friend, Corey Jones, who was killed by a police officer in Palm Beach Lakes about 3 years ago. And immediately they started to vilify him. Thankfully, I had connections with Sean King, who was able to get Corey's story out, who he really was, before the police department and whoever they hire, whatever PR firms they hire, Fraternal Order of Police, whoever gets involved to do this spin, it's consistently done no matter the circumstance. But this one is uniquely disgusting in that this guy did absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing. He was at home. And so now they've gone one step further and said, not only will we vilify you when there's questionable circumstances, we will vilify you when there's no question about it that you were absolutely innocent and had nothing to do with your own murder.
This comes, this latest development comes about a day or so after, I guess there was a poll that showed something like 70% of the country thinks it's legit for football players to take a knee during the anthem. I mean, this is why Kaepernick was taking a knee. Like, right. I mean, like this type of stuff, like the idea, like the way that we're going to investigate this shooting. I mean, they're charging her with manslaughter.
Yeah.
So they clearly, it's one thing if it's like they found in her apartment, like, stores of drugs and wanted to see if this was part of like a drug deal gone bad or something like that. But there's no implication of that whatsoever. They're saying this was an accident on her part, and they go and look for it's amazing to me. And there's been people who've been getting on the Dallas Morning News apparently too, who have been sort of like swallowing this hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. So I mean, think about it like this. What have we heard about the character of this officer, the person who's actually the one who killed Botham Jean? We've heard nothing really about her, except that it took 3 days for them to finally arrest her and to charge her. And we haven't heard anything about any toxicology report from her body. What does she have in her system? Even though the mugshot looks like she was clearly under the influence of something. But we're still in the court of public opinion, which is what matters for any potential grand jury. The court of public opinion absolutely matters. We haven't heard anything about her character, her past, nothing. Instead, what we've heard is that she possibly gave out some lawful commands and that he didn't abide by them. Well, who actually is going to abide by a stranger's command when they bust into your apartment? That's not reasonable or logical. But this is how it plays out, and I think this is the most extreme example. It's so extreme. I have to give Ben Shapiro some props because he honestly didn't understand why this was even an issue or why they would bring this up in a sarcastic tweet that he sent out. He actually was on the right side of it. But it took this extreme example for us to see how ridiculous this is. Yet the MO, the pattern, is consistently the same no matter what the circumstances, whether it's 12-year-old Tamir Rice or whether it was 26-year-old Botham Jean.
It's nuts. People should be paying attention to this because what's going on there is just, it's out of control. Ben Dixon, always a pleasure, man. I wish we had more time. We had a lot more. This
ground
week
to
has
cover.
just been crazy, but we will do this again soon. Folks can check out your podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and anywhere you get podcasts. So check it out. Ben, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Sam.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to the great Andy Kindler, who is in a different country.
I woke up in the morning and all the bells were ringing. My eyes could see the glory, baby. Could hear the Sunday singing. You only get to see the light just one time in your life. Oh, black magic that blows your mind away and takes you somewhere that you want to stay. You only get to stay one day. Oh, that cold black magic. Isn't anything more wretched than to just have common sight? The eyes that saw the glory have been blinded by the light, and it's the true believers.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Majority Report. I am Sam Cedar. As you know, we blow the lid off of stories, both domestic and international. There is a major controversy brewing across the Atlantic Ocean in the UK. Specifically, I am talking about in England, I believe in London, England. And to introduce at least one part of this story that is just exploding, I will first need to play this song.
With a Jew like Andy Kindler, you know you can't go wrong. His ancestors wrote the God Bless America song. A true Obama bot, and he believes Obama can never be wrong. Yeah, Andy Kindler.com. You made me laugh so hard, I had to write you your theme song, Andy Kindler.
Now, our foreign correspondent, Andy Kindler, has found himself in the middle of the story this time. Andy, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? I'm calling on a Morse code machine from 1947.
You know, I have to say that your phone sounds better than it does when you're in California.
Maybe I'm funnier here. No thanks to the critics.
Well,
hey,
all right.
Here's the thing.
Hold on.
Here's the thing. There's a big brouhaha. Brouhaha over here. These London reviewers, first of all, they review you when you land. They comment on how good you deplaned. That's how bad they are. That's a rough critic.
All right. Well, I just got notice. I have a friend in London, and said that she was planning to see you. I said, "Did you see him? I'm having him on today because of that review." And she goes, "Oh, I'll skip. It's Saturday night." No, she's going. I will get the full. I'm gonna follow up on this story. All right, wait a second. So, Andy, let's just back up for a minute. Let's just back up. All right. So
you're back up. Let's push back. Don't make me push back.
You are in London, England. Let's set the context. When was the last time that you performed stand-up in London, England?
2005, which I believe is 13 years ago. You do the math.
All right. I also get 13. Now, listen, my understanding is this was before you alienated a big part of Great Britain by going after, what's that guy's name again? I honestly can't remember his name. Ricky Gervais. Yeah.
Can I give you a sample of one of my Ricky Gervais jokes?
Yeah.
One sample. They say that Hannah Gadsby's one-person show, Nanette, didn't have enough jokes in it. Yet everyone's happy with Netflix paying Ricky Gervais $40 million to do Caitlyn Jenner can't drive humor.
That sounds a little bit more like an editorial than a joke. Andy.
Right. I mean, that's all right.
Oh, I don't do jokes anymore. I don't do jokes.
No. Okay. Now,
I'm sure it's true.
That is true.
Fuck!
Okay.
Are you doing sound
Ricky
effects
Gervais
like a morning zoo now?
Yeah, that was Ricky Gervais.
Yes.
We did a Ricky Gervais drop.
I love when he laughs. I love it. He's so delighted by life he can't stop laughing. What an idiot!
All right, so Andy,
what an idiot!
Now, where are you performing? Where are you performing? Is this
I'm performing at the Soho Theater, and that's Theater RE. They're not kidding around over here.
Excuse me, the Soho Theater. Ooh, okay. Well, that's
excuse me for living.
All right.
Well.
So you performed. Now, this is one of the things that I find incredibly annoying about this review. This is coming from the Vulture Hound Steel Chair magazine.
The Vulture Hound Steel Chair magazine.
Somehow they have managed to review you in the future because they call it 10/9/2018. That would be October 9th. That would be October 9th. Yet they're trying to play it off like it was from September 10th.
Oh, I've been yelling at the crowds all week. You idiots. You're putting the wrong number first, you morons. You lime ease.
Okay. So you've, I mean, why? I don't know why we did that. Why did we switch that? Why did we switch it? Because obviously they were doing this before.
They switched it.
Did they switch it or did we switch it? We must have.
No, we switched it because, well, you remember King George. That guy couldn't find his own thing with a thing.
This was our way of saying, to heck with you, King George.
Yes.
Although, I mean, let's be honest. Why would you put the day before the... Well, no. It makes more sense the way they do it, right?
And it was tough
It
stuff.
does. It's bang on.
Month,
it's bang
year.
on, Sam. Bang on.
Well, there you go. So you picked up all the lingo, too. I don't understand.
But you know what I like right now is you can really tell how seething Andy is. I feel like underneath, they talk about tears of the clown. This is the rage of the clown.
Wow. Andy, are you mad at Great Britain?
You know what? I can't take it anymore with Great Britain. Why didn't David Cameron support us on when we were going to bomb Syria when the most brilliant, president in the entire history of the world, Barack Obama, was going to make a move. David Cameron said, I hate him over here. I hate him. Lie me.
Great Britain.
Lie me.
Lie me. Hey, lie me. Hey, lie me. Hey, you who doesn't understand what my insult means.
Right.
You're a lie me.
Right. Great Britain, more like meh Britain.
Yeah.
More like Boo Britain.
We'd workshop some of this.
You could use that. All right, so let me just read a little bit from this. Is from Charlotte Harrison. Did you ever meet her?
Oh, and she's right here. She wants to give her side of the story. She's in my apartment.
We should have.
Wow. She looks like a total misery.
We should have had her on, too.
She looks like a misery, I have to say that.
Okay.
Shut up, Charlotte. Charlotte, just shut the hell up.
Let me read the first part of this.
Shut up.
It would be easy to blame the audience. It would be easy to blame the half-full room for how things played out. But it wasn't the audience's fault. Not really. Surely, Saturday night's the time for laughing? ?
That's her idea of a joke.
Surely it is. All right, so we go through here, and she says that you're the comedian's comedian, and she verified that through Twitter.
Somewhat. Okay. She didn't even believe that. All she did was go through her Twitter while she was watching the show. She's like, why would I lie about being an unpopular comedian? That's what a comedian's comedian is, an unpopular comedian who only 15 people like. And she thinks she has to verify that.
Well, maybe, yeah, it's somewhat verified through a quick Twitter scroll, which revealed numerous well-known comedians had been in touch with him and were advocating going to see Kindler's first UK shows in 13 years. So she got the dates right.
In touch with him, though? That's just kind of funny.
I don't know. It's a different way of... Okay, and...
Hey, I can hear Michael now. I couldn't hear you before, Michael.
Oh. Are we good now?
Yeah, you're here. Now
okay.
All right,
you're live.
That's probably best.
That is better.
Now... so Andy, let me go on. It said she writes, it felt like the audience was being told off, both for not being big enough crowd and for not laughing enough. This might have been regarded as being justified if enough reasons to laugh had been provided.
Ouch. Ouch.
The hour-long.
She's funnier than Ricky Gervais.
I was going to say she seems like she seems like a lot of fun.
She does.
The hour-long set was comprised with a large majority of comments about the audience and the lack, therefore, of responses rather than providing them with actual jokes to laugh at.
It's called crowd work.
Hey, don't minimize it that bad, Mike. I wasn't asking people where they were from. I was commenting on how poorly they were receiving me.
I like that. It'd be like hostile Dave Rubin. Any gay people tonight? Why is nobody laughing?
I love that Dave Rubin stand-up. Oh, I love it. My God.
When a joke did land, Kindler then stuck with it. Utilizing the formula of repeating various incarnations of the joke until the laughter diminished.
Can we have
then
her on?
Talking about how he had pushed past the punchline and should have stopped before talking about how little laughter he was being provided with.
It's called meta commentary on the maybe she's not cerebral enough to understand what Andy's doing.
Andy is deconstructing.
She's a big alternative comedy fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Big alternative comedy fan.
Let's see. There's never been a. Oh, okay. And she said the problem perhaps might have been the audience to get what they were expecting. This was a function of your marketing campaign, Andy. The fact his set is entitled, quote, The Ugly America Tour, along with the marketing materials, soundbite of, quote, over 10 years have passed since Andy Kindler performed in the UK, and there's never been a better time for him to make his Amera exit than right now. Many may have presumed they were going to get an hour of structured comedic socio-political commentary.
Ooh, wait, when did she get so pretentious all of a sudden?
Well, she's got
Charlotte.
Were you not, Andy? Were you not doing an hour of structured comedic socio-political commentary?
Basically, everything I said about my act, she repeated in the article. I have no structure. He has no structure. That's all she did. She took my own act and she used it against me.
Instead, the set didn't have a clear structure at all. When not discussing the audience lack of laughs, Kindler relied on jokes about Hitler, being Jewish, and having OCD.
Now, again, this sounds very suspiciously like the strategy you take on this show, Andy.
Can I stop that for 1 second? Because the great John Dore wrote me a DM, and he said it would be great if she had left the comma out of that sentence, because it would have been relied on jokes about Hitler being Jewish.
And it relied on jokes about Hitler being Jewish and having OCD.
Wait,
it would have read.
Why can't
I didn't
you
know
do
he
that?
did. He couldn't touch any dead body he killed. Refused to touch it.
Could you imagine Hitler's Jewish mom? I know you're killing everybody, but you don't have time to call your mother.
I'll sit in the dark, she said. Hitler's mother, when Hitler turned off her electricity.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, Mom. I'll try to call you next week. I'm very busy.
Now, what happened with this whole thing? You bring up Louis C.K., and 2 audience members stood up and left?
Okay, I got to tell you, this is the best part of the article. In the middle of the show, I started talking about Louis C.K. I did my bit about how I have OCD, but and I'm afraid I've done everything. I'm afraid that I'm going to get caught. But not once in my life had I ever worried, did I expose myself to a younger comedian in a situation that allowed me to exert my power? So that was the bit I was doing. They got up. I think they thought I was doing a pro Louis C.K. bit, maybe, because he gets up and he says, I have to go home because Harvey Weinstein's babysitting for my kids. He yells that. And then his wife says, flatly, I'm going to get a refund. Okay, so they leave. One guy in the front says, I can say fuck, right? Yeah. One guy in the front says, fuck off. They call that she called that mob mentality.
Wait a second. The one guy in the
who was on my side, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you had some fans there. This was not the audience was with you.
They were all enjoying it. But as the guy left after making his hilarious Harvey Weinstein joke and his wife saying he's getting a refund, the guy yells to him as he's leaving, why don't you fuck off? And she claims that's mob mentality. Not mob mentality, the guy standing up and heckling me. She's fine with that. It's unbelievable.
What wasn't unclear was how displeased the few diehard fans within the audience were at his interruption. There were jeers targeted at the departing couple, accompanied with a dickhead and a fuck off. It was a moment of mob mentality that was truly uncomfortable to witness. What?
Jesus Christ.
Is this the first comedy show she's ever been to?
No, but she's actually the person who interrupts the show. That's mob mentality. She thinks it's okay to heckle the show, do your Harvey Weinstein joke, disturb the show, and everybody else should be nice about that.
You know, what's also funny is the idea of Andy Kindler, getting a frothing mob up. There's nothing like
Get the fuck out. That's right. And you tell them to
get him. Everybody get him.
Fuck you. Fuck Ricky Gervais. And fuck Louis, too. And you follow them out. And then come back, and then I'll do routines about Hitler's
I have
OCD.
this image of you running through the streets of London, carrying a torch, with a bunch of like soccer hooligans following you, ready to beat up people on the streets.
Louis will not replace us.
Jews will not, but the thing that's amazing me, I really, that one knocked me for a loop, because I have never ever heard anyone say the good part of the show was when someone disturbed it and yelled and walked out, and he was very rude to them. I was rude to the people leaving.
There you
Unbelievable.
Go.
That's what I say.
Now,
what can you do?
Now, what can you do? Has this review, this spurious review, as far as I'm concerned, Has it in any way marred attendance at your show?
It's Bill marred attendance. Now, Sam, let me tell you this, Sam. Here's the thing. Here's how I knew I was doomed. Here's how I knew when I was doomed in London. I've had like a third of a house, a half of a house, that kind of a thing, which I'm used to. I knew I was doomed the first time I tweeted something funny, what I thought was funny, during the day here at London, and I got like 8 likes. They have no idea who I am, and then so they're not going to come down to see me. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, I got news for you. We have a lot of British listeners. You are there till Saturday the 15th at the Soho Theater, and I think
2 shows, tonight and tomorrow.
Oh, right. Today's the 14th.
Tonight and tomorrow.
Oh, geez. So how many shows have you done there? I mean, have they been okay? There's a lot of...
I've been enjoying... the first night was hard. The first night really was truly horrible, and I was reviewed by Chortle. You know Chortle?
Chortle?
And
I was not familiar with
Chortle. Yeah, Chortle. Like not Guffaw, but Chortle.
Okay.
And they said they gave me 3.5 stars. So I said, I'm a restaurant you wouldn't choose to dine at.
3.5 stars is a good out of 5. I'd eat there. I'm not going to a I'm not going to a 4, 4.5. I don't have the cash for that, dude.
So if you Google nearest comedy club and 3.5 stars comes up, not bad.
Right.
Not bad.
I'm there before I go to 5. I don't want the crowds.
But here's the thing. I've been having fun. The good news is that they literally have no idea who Bill Maher is. The joke won't work because they don't know who that jerk is.
So are there, have you been doing any Ricky Gervais material?
Yes, I love the way you call. I love when you use the French. I love that you will never get his name quite right.
It's right, isn't it? Doesn't he? Like I'm from in Worcester. We have a lot of French Canadians, and so I'm very particular in the way that I pronounce.
It's Ricky Gervais.
I'm pretty sure it's Ricky Gervais.
He doesn't pronounce it that way.
Maybe he's on the lamb. I don't know, but it's Gervais. Ricky Gervais.
They don't even know, and they don't even know Dane Cook over. I do a Dane Cook reference. Crickets.
Nothing.
I don't know.
Now wait. Does the Gervais stuff go over well?
Oh yes, because everybody who hates him laughs really like that hard laugh of getting it out finally in a public place.
All right. So
he's such a hideous human being.
All right. Well, folks can go see you at the Soho House, the Soho Theater, tonight and tomorrow night. All right, but we have some other stuff to get to, Andy. We can't spend the whole time on this sort of meta stuff about your thing. We got we don't have any Dennis Miller. I don't know what happened to him. I think he's taking a break because he knew you were out of the country.
His career failed.
His
career failed. Oh, I thought you were really asking me. I'm sorry.
No. But Bill O'Reilly had some comments about the canceling of The Break with Michelle Wolf. Were you aware that Netflix canceled that program?
No. I mean, this is like news. I don't even know. Why would they cancel that program?
I don't know. But Bill O'Reilly...
Oh, they canceled it. They canceled it separate from any controversy. They just didn't pick it up. Is that right?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there was... No. It launched after the controversy. There's no controversy.
Well, but they didn't pick it up. Who knows?
No, I don't think it was because of...
But here's Bill O'Reilly in his basement or in the study in his house. And it's a room that must have gotten a lot of use because he has nothing but Bill O'Reilly books on the shelves. Do you notice that? See that behind him? Nothing but Bill O'Reilly books on the shelves, like multiple copies of it. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then he has that Century book that nobody ever opened. Everybody got
read.
That Century book was given out. I have a copy of that, or I did at one point, because it was given out by like an agency for, when they gave like Christmas presents or something like that. All right, here's Bill O'Reilly commenting on this cancellation.
The media and the news industry, the entertainment media news industry are synergized. So
now,
you remember this?
Now, Andy, I want to stop there because in case you didn't know what synergized meant, he took both his hands and interlocked his fingers so that you would know what he meant.
I was lost. I was like, easy, egghead.
The local patrolman and my wife have synergized. And I need to use synergize with the department to follow both of them.
The media and the news industry, the entertainment media news industry are synergized.
Pause it for 1 second. Just want to remind everybody, he was the host of Hard Copy, I think it was, back in the day, before he went on to Fox News. Go ahead.
Synergized. So you remember this woman, Michelle Wolf, who was the comedian at the Correspondents' Dinner, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, who attacked Sarah
I thought that was Michael.
Now,
I thought that was Michael
Wolf
talking.
was given a show on Netflix, but it was canceled, I think, in a month. In a month. They canceled her show. Here's what she said at the dinner. Roll.
I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies.
Awful.
What a great crowd.
So anyway, she's through. And this backs up what I said at the time. She made those remarks. You can't win on that level. You're a hater, you can't win. Now, we all know who the haters are. Very few of them prosper.
Does he think he's drunk? What's going? Is he drunk? Is he drunk, or is he like? I feel like he's either about like he's having gas, or he's drunk. There's some weird dynamic going on.
I think it's depression, clinical depression. That's what I call it.
The haters.
He's down.
It's called being depressed.
Andy, what say you?
So he's saying she was destined to fail because of her material or something? I don't know. I can't even argue against the Bill O'Reilly statement because he's so disturbed mentally. But I don't know. I mean, what is he really saying? Is he saying, I told you so about these haters? You know, what is he saying?
I don't know.
I think he's implying the market's punishing her for doing those mean jokes about Huckabee.
I'm telling you this. I used to say racist stuff with subtext, and I've even endorsed that Puerto Rican broad who's a communist. And you wanted me gone, now you got Tucker, who's literally like an Andover Nazi. So go figure, haters. Fuck you.
I think Tucker is actually worse.
Tucker is
Bill
definitely
O'Reilly.
worse.
Oh,
he
yeah.
is absolutely worse.
He's younger, and he's more hungry.
You think I'm worse?
Here is.
No.
Let's wrap up with just some Dennis Miller jokes, shall we? From his Twitter feed,
please.
Let's just go back a week.
He's still on Twitter.
Hey, Coco.
Are you ready?
Hey, Coco.
Dennis Miller on September 7th. Boy, I'm having a good hair day! Exclamation point. Must have been something that happened close to 10 years ago. Hashtag Dennis Miller option. Do you know what? Do you know what that means?
No.
I wouldn't even
I'll
put a
bite.
drum on that.
I'll bite. What does it mean?
I don't know. I was just asking. You're a comedian. I thought maybe you could figure that out.
He had more hair. Is that the joke? He had more hair.
Must have been
Back
something that happened close to 10 years ago. Maybe like nothing good has happened in 10 years for me, and it gave me a good hair day.
Did he start going gray 10 years ago?
I don't.
He started losing his hair when Obama came into office. That's what I would suggest.
I don't know. And then on September 8th,
No, that's not it.
he wrote, congrats, Osaka. Wow, that was obviously the tennis match. Let's see, September 9th. This has to be the first era in human history where people who are constantly positioned as strong whine so much.
Oh, this isn't even bad as something bad.
How about
Like, I'm
but
worried
I don't
about
think
him.
that's a joke, because when he does jokes, he puts hashtag Dennis Miller option.
Yeah, that's
on
not
it.
a joke.
So
that's a deep insight.
that's an insight.
Well, this is a joke.
Here's the
right?
next one. If Trump's entire administration is indeed one big sieve, and we're going to hear about everything anyway, he should install a 24/7 cam in the Oval and start a pay-per-view service called the Trump Network, or maybe ESTN. Hashtag Dennis
So is that
Miller
the
option.
first part of the joke? That's just the premise, right? What is the punchline of that joke?
How is it possible that he's getting even less funny?
What would ESTN mean?
Oh,
As opposed to ESPN.
The Eastern, what is it?
Trump.
This is
the
crazy.
Trump Network.
He is
something.
I don't know what's happening.
The Entertainment Sports
Trump
Network.
I don't get it either.
Oh my God!
And then
it does get. Sometimes you get a little sad for a creep like him.
Wouldn't it be funny if Dennis Miller started
I can't
adopting the
bother
Bill
to
Maher
try
method, where
anymore.
he says a tweet like that and then nobody gets it, and he's just like, "Yeah, fuck you. It was funny. Come on, bop bop bop." I think that
I love the way. Sorry, over.
I think Warren
I love the
Buffett
way
is
Bill Maher. Yeah,
I think Warren Buffett is the Stephen Hawking of common sense. Yes.
Warren Buffett.
I don't know what. Wait, but I don't understand because I thought Warren Buffett at the very least isn't a Republican. So is he saying that he's like the Stephen Hawking of investment advice, or is he making a
He doesn't seem
really
to be
mean
doing
joke about
I don't know
Stephen Hawking's like ability to walk?
I think he likes Warren Buffett. In this case, he likes Warren Buffett. I think he's confused.
In this case,
he thinks
I like
Warren Buffett is Jimmy Buffett.
Oh, here we go. This is a good one. This is from August 23rd. I just had free-range chicken for lunch. While it was delicious, I did note that the bird was deceased and on my plate. Exactly how free was that range?
Oh, my God.
How about this one?
Oh,
Mueller
hurts.
just subpoenaed Trump's Rose Law Firm records. You get that one?
Yeah.
No, I
the
missed
Clinton's
it. What?
Isn't that Hillary Clinton's old law firm?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd she subpoena?
That's- See how he did that?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, are we piling on him now because he's so pathetic? Maybe
Yeah.
we're piling on.
We are
But
a
I
little
love
bit.
it, though. I
Sure,
do
why
love it.
not?
We need to find new conservative comedians.
I know.
They don't. I don't. But honestly, I know that this guy was never like the funniest person in the world, and was probably always overrated. But I mean, is this like analogous to say like I don't know somebody who say they teach like college level math, and all of a sudden they just can't do fractions anymore? What's going on?
He has to. See, I think Dennis Miller is more self-aware than your garden variety fascist. So I think every once in a while, maybe he sees what he's become, and it depresses him. That's what I'm hoping.
Or this is like jujitsu because he's destroying these segments. It used to be so fun, and this is not fun.
No.
These tweets are like, that's your favorite phrase, a cry for help.
Smart. He's just putting this stuff out there so that we read it, and then it just brings down everybody here.
You still going to do Majority Report segments about me? Well, how about this?
Here's some ammunition. It's going to blow up in the chambers of your own guns.
Yeah, my favorite color is red.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
Choo-choo.
Here it is. My jokes are like trebles on the Starship Majority Report.
Andy,
bop, bop, bop.
All right, let's leave Dennis Miller for a moment. I want to just wrap up by asking you, like, what are you doing during the day? Like, what does Andy Kindler do in a foreign country? Like, it's hard for me to imagine you even in a city that is not your house. Like in a location that is not around your house. Like, what do you do? Do you go out? Do you eat? Do you just stay in the hotel room or what?
No, there's no hotel. I'm in an apartment, and it's up 12 flights of stairs, so it's hard to get out. But once I get out, boom! I walk out right into the cosmopolitan London scene, and it's really kind of fun. But I do things like say, what's the deal with them calling it washing liquid? That's basically what I do.
Do you go?
They call it washing
Are you
liquid.
going to Are you going to parties? Like, you go out to restaurants?
No.
Like, what do you do? What do you do?
Restaurants, yes. I went to a wonderful French restaurant and I even had good sushi here. It was very good. The food in London, if I wasn't a cynical person, I would say this is the greatest city.
Really?
This is a really wonderful city. Yeah, I love it.
Are you going to museums? I mean, what do you do?
No. We did that already. We did last time we went here. We went to the Tower of London, the guy with the gate, Buckingham something, and the other thing. So we're not doing any of that. We're just walking around, shopping. I'm trying to spend my guarantee that I got.
Oh, good. Good. So you're buying clothes. You're coming back. You're going to look a little dapper. Well, Andy, I wish you luck in the rest of your British tour. Are you going to tour somewhere else, or are you just coming home after you're done?
I come home for a week, and then I'll be in. You have any listeners in Toronto? Because I'll be in Toronto the week after next.
Oh, yeah, we do. A lot of Toronto listeners. They'll check it out. Where in Toronto?
It's called Just for Laughs 42. It's a festival, so I'll be at whatever club that they're having me play at.
And are you doing your industry, your industry wrap up there, or no?
No, I just do that once a year. And then I just do. I'm hosting the alternative. It's called the Alternative Show because I started it about 20 years ago. But I host an alternative show at both festivals.
Wow! All right. Well, take that,
Alternative.
lady from
what exactly
England.
Is that? He claimed to be an alternative comic,
yes,
but seemed to be more focused on making jokes about Adolf Hitler.
Yes.
Relying on them. Relying on jokes.
Well,
he relied on particle physics.
I feel like
I love you guys.
The least Hitler
thanks,
could
Andy.
do is give Jewish comedians a trope to rely on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean,
appreciate the call, Andy.
Thank you. I love you.
We'll see you
Love
later,
you
buddy.
too.
Have
Be
fun.
good. Bye.
Andy Kindler, ladies and gentlemen.
that
Andy
review was
Kindler.
so nasty.
It really was. Mean.
A poison pen.
Really, I mean, but I love it. It was sort of like a great combination of just sort of funny snark that just happened to be turned at our friend, and then another part of her just completely not getting it, and then another part we're like, it does kind of sound like Andy.
It sounds like Andy, but she just didn't appreciate it. The worst review I ever got was never actually printed.
Where did this review appear?
In 1997 or 8. I was the New Yorker magazine used to have a Next series, the Next, and they would be the next blankety blank, and I was chosen to be the next Albert Brooks, based upon by the editor. I think it was David Hershey.
How did you monkey this up?
I will tell you how I monkeyed it up. That's an interesting question, Michael. So they assigned John Lahr to write about it. John Lahr is a famous theater critic and had written quite a bit about Bill Hicks, I think, at the time. And he wanted to follow me around. And the first thing I did was to go meet him at his office, and they had just moved offices because the New Yorker had been bought, I think, by I can't remember what the name of it was. This is 20, more than 20 years ago. But, and I made a joke when I got to his office. He's like, "Did you have trouble finding it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I made a joke or something like, yeah, no, I got stuck at Good Housekeeping or something like that." And he just was like, "Okay." And then as we're walking
strong
around,
rapport right out of the gate.
yeah, and he was following me to auditions, and at one point he says to me, "How does it feel to be hot?" And I was like, "Are you serious?"
That
and
is
said,
like what?
It's like what?
It's like a
what?
People magazine.
Yeah,
question.
exactly. I was just like, "What?" I said, "You realize that when we go into these auditions, the only reason why I'm getting this type of treatment from them is because you're trailing around with me. Like, usually I go into these auditions and I'm not hot." And so then,
classic media working.
well,
by
this
Cedar.
is, yeah. I mean, I was a little bit immature in terms of I just, because I remember thinking what's the worst that can happen? I'm the next He can say whatever he wants, but what's he going to do? Pull the piece? And so then, and they were going to say I was the next Albert Brooks, right? So I'm thinking so all this other stuff.
Not really just, like what you'd want to be, right?
That's what I want to be,
right.
His film work in particular. And so he came to this alternative room that was there, and I did this bit that was like a combination of The Man Who Would Be King. That's that movie with Sean Connery, and they shot him with an arrow, and it actually landed in his belt, but they all thought he was like superhuman because of it. And it was just like, I can't even remember the movie at this point. And I think it was, I can't remember if it was Wittgenstein or whatever it was that said that the Heidegger principle, right? Where like if you view something, it changes. I can't remember. Schrodinger. Yeah. And so I did a bit that was based on that, and where I started like by the end singing and telling the audience that I was not the leader they were looking for. And it was all supposed to be sort of a play off of that guy following me around and changing everything that I do. And apparently he wrote a piece saying I was the worst stand-up in the history of ever stand-up. And the editor was just like...
A little uncharitable.
Well, it was also like, he's not a stand-up. That's not why you're following him around. Right. Like, you're writing a piece about stand-up, and he's a filmmaker. And he's just, Albert Brooks did anti-comedy. And apparently he didn't appreciate it. Hershey because John Lahr was such an important writer, couldn't get the piece published, and that was it. Not the Albert Brooks. And then look at me now, sitting here just doing a podcast, talking to Andy Kindler about his bad review in London. So kids, let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah, real upper.
Yep, there you go.
I don't think many people need that lesson, though, to just be sort of vaguely polite to the New Yorker writer that's trailing them around all day.
Right. Most people probably figure that out right away.
Most people could establish that level of...
Definitely, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Now, I will say it took me a long time to learn that lesson, because I have about 5 other stories like that. That maybe I'll reveal at one point, but I have about 5 other stories, just like that. That should be member.
I want to do an illicit history for TMBS called "How to Relentlessly F Up Opportunity in Show Business" with Sam Cedar.
I don't know that "F up" is the right word. It's just sort of like
suicide bomb.
Throw them away. Yeah, folks. This program relies on its members because
Sam
I screwed up my career 20 years ago. So
I couldn't refrain from being a dick to a New Yorker writer.
Look, the guy was so full of himself. Like, how does it feel to be hot? What?
It's a stupid question.
I was offended by it. I mean, I was coming from a anti-industry movement in comedy at the time. And so that whole thing just set me off. And I showed him.
Yeah, in a few moments you have,
I've had my moments.
I think during the Cernovich thing, he was like, "Hey, if I ran that piece, that might be getting some interesting sort of, that would come up in some Google searches now."
That's right. There you go, John Lahr. That guy just got to where he was because his I think it was his dad was the Scarecrow, Bert Lahr, or the Lion. His dad was the Lion, Bert Lahr in Wizard of Oz. Folks, this show relies on its members to exist. You can support this program by going jointhemajority.report.com, jointhemajority.report.com. And as a way of saying thank you, we give you extra content daily, and we make the free half commercial free for you. So jointhemajority.report.com. Michael, this week on TMBS.
Ilona Minkowski returns, regular crew. She's coming in on Tuesday.
Oh, she's back. She took a trip, right? She went to this Russia, didn't she?
She was at the World Cup.
She's at the World Cup?
She was at the World Cup. Oh. And she's back. We're going to be talking about that and a whole bunch of other stuff. Of course, post-game, this weekend's Illicit History with Derek Davison on Bush to Trump, the war on terrorism, what it means, and how it's played out.
And why it was important that he shared candy with Michelle Obama.
Yes, we got to the real heart of the matter, which is don't worry about repealing the AUMF because there's candy to be shared. And then Woke Bros with Waz and I, obviously, once a week. So it's 4 shows a week at this point. Patreon.com/DNBS, on YouTube, on iTunes. Thanks.
And Matt?
Scarlet Letter is coming out on Saturday, recorded last night. The first female voice on Literary Hangover, so tune in for that.
Is this going to be a surprise who it is, or are you?
No, it's Kara. She's been on some of the sort of pilots of it, so people might.
And I should say,
cool.
Jamie is under the weather, but she has written an op-ed about the elections in New York, and we will put a link. Do you have that link?
I don't have it yet, and I've been looking at
we'll
her
look for that
Twitter thread, so I don't think she's put it. I'm not sure. I don't know.
All right. Well, keep an eye out for that. If we don't get it on this link on this show, we will get it on the other one. And
we also have a Jimmy Reefer Cake Adam Rainstopper collaboration again this week.
Really? All right, well, let me just add, if you like the stories you hear on the Majority Report, check out the Sierra Club's new storytelling podcast, The Land I Trust. Season 2 of The Land I Trust brings you 14 storytellers from across the western U.S. who share their experiences in harvesting, protecting, and living with the 4 natural elements, with tales of climate change, clean energy, and everything in between. Listen to The Land I Trust at beyondcoal.org/stories. or on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. Now let's play that Jimmy Reefer Cake song, and we will then go into the fun half song.
This is called 7.
Anybody know how many wars we're in? And for bonus points, name those countries. Today is September 11th. 2018, I wrote this song, so I looked it up. We're at war with 7 countries right now. And listen to this song, I'll tell you how. Never should have started the Iraq War. Bush had the number of wars, and for Obama made it 7. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, and Niger. Obama would pretend he was an anti-war friend, but in the end it turned out to be a hypocrite and liar. We're at war with 7 countries right now. Yeah, listen to this song, I'll tell you how. Never should have started the Iraq War. Bush had a number of wars, therefore Obama made it 7. All under the banner of the same war authority granted in the 2002 authorization for the use of military force to fight Al-Qaeda-linked militants. Obama scored points because he didn't vote for it. Then he had 3 more wars. What a hypocrite. We're at war with 7 countries right now. Listen to this song, I'll tell you how. Never should have started the Iraq War. Bush had a number of wars before Obama made it 7. We're at war with 7 countries right now. Listen to this song, I'll tell you how. Never should have started the Iraq War. beautiful music. Help them think clearly about all these fucking wars.
Heading into the fun half, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.